Hello friends, welcome back to the Nut House. Today I wanted to share with you a fall pumpkin bread that is really delicious. So I was given a few pumpkins from a fall festival that was left over, so I'm going to use one of them and cook it into this pumpkin bread. Now typically I don't like pumpkin too much. I don't really care for pumpkin pie, but this bread is really good. So I'm going to cut this in half, get the seeds out, and you can watch me struggle because I had a time with it. At one point, I thought I would never get it cleaned out. Anyway, we're going to get it in a 350-degree oven and let it cook until it's fork tender. Now, I did this a couple days ahead of making the bread, so keep that in mind that you can do this way ahead. Keep it in your refrigerator or even freeze it, and that way you have pumpkin ready. If you like pumpkin pies and all of that, you don't have to buy the can. You can just cook it yourself. It's super simple. This one was a little bit of trouble trying to get all of that out. I don't really cook a lot with pumpkins, so if you know if there's an easier way to get all this goop out of it than what I'm doing, please leave me a comment down below and let me know. I would love to know because this was not as easy as the sweet potatoes. That may be why I love sweet potatoes way more than pumpkin. So I let it cool, and the skin just really peels right off. It's super easy. I'm going to get that in the mixing bowl and go ahead and start mixing it up so that I can get it pretty smooth. Then we'll start adding our other ingredients for this bread. So like I said earlier, I made this a few days ahead. So I kept it in a glass covered container in the refrigerator. And then when I was ready to make it, I pulled it out and made the bread. You could also just freeze it and do the same thing. So now we have 1.5 sticks of butter. I'm going to get that in the microwave to soften. Now you can do it on the stovetop, or even if you think that far ahead, which I normally do not think that far ahead, you can leave it on the counter to soften. But we're going to just put it in the microwave so it can soften up really quickly. We're going to add 2 cups of sugar into the bowl. And then I'm going to add the butter. We're going to get that in the mixer so that it can be creaming together before we add the eggs. So now we're going to add 2 eggs, and I'm going to add them one at a time into the bowl. Now, if I were not doing this for a video, I probably would just add the flour and all the seasonings right into this bowl. But because I'm making this video for you, I'll show you what you're supposed to do. So we're going to get the flour ready in just a minute. And this recipe calls for 2 cups of all-purpose flour. And then to that flour, I'm going to go ahead and add my spices, and I'll show you that in just a second. So now we're going to add our pumpkin in and start mixing that together. Now, it's going to look like it's curdled at this point, but it's not. It's going to work itself out. But I just want to warn you, when you look at it, it's probably going to look like it's curdled. So if I did not make the pumpkin, I would go ahead and add the 15 ounces of pumpkin at this point. But like I said, we're doing the fresh pumpkin. Add it into it, and then we will add our final ingredients. So I have 2 cups of all-purpose flour in the bowl. I'm going to add a half a teaspoon of baking powder, and then we're going to add a full teaspoon of baking soda. Now we're going to add the spices. I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, 1 teaspoon of nutmeg, and 1 teaspoon of ground cloves. Now, if you have fresh nutmeg that you can grate into this, I think that would be the best choice. It would be really, really delicious. But if you don't, you can just use the kind like I have that's already been ground. So I'm going to add a half a teaspoon of salt also into this, and whisk it really good so that there's no lumps or clumps, because sometimes the baking soda and some of the spices, they tend to want to clump. And then all we're going to do is combine the two and put it in a greased loaf pan. And I served this with a pat of butter on it. It was so good. It tasted just like you would think fall should taste like. So I thought this recipe was supposed to make 2 loaves, but I had a really big loaf pan and it just filled up 1, which is fine. But if you have 2 small loaf pans, you would probably need to use both of them for this. This is going to go in a 325-degree oven for about 65 minutes, or until you test it with a toothpick, or I use a case knife. I don't know, a dinner knife. I don't know what you call it. We call it a case knife here in Georgia. Anyway, we're going to get that in the oven and let it cook. And then we'll let it cool. And I'm actually going to wrap mine up and freeze it for later on. But this is a really good recipe to try. So on this video, I decided to leave out the music. I had some people say they didn't like the music, or it was this or that. So let me know which one you prefer down in the comments below. Do you like the music, or had you rather me just leave the music out altogether? So I want to thank each and every one of you for watching the video. And if you try the recipe out, please leave me a comment down below and let me know what you think. We thought it was really, really good. And it was especially good with that butter on top.